This is episode number 385 of WPwatercooler, WordPress 5.7. Brought to you by ServerPress, Maker's Desktop Server. They make local WordPress development easy. Check them out at serverpress.com. Support us on Patreon. Go to patreon.com/WPwatercooler. If you can help us out over there, we'd appreciate it. I'm Jason Tucker. I'm an IT director. You can find me over at Jason Tucker on Twitter.
I'm Steve Zengid. I'm the founder of Zeek Interactive, and I run the OC WordPress meetup.
I'm not Say Reed. She does some stuff on the internet. You should go check it out.
Make
Say
WordPress
Reed Media on all the things.
WordPress. Drink.
And y'all know who it is. It's your boy Jason Cosper, aka Fat Mullenweg, at Booga on Twitter and all the things.
Go help us out. Go over to Apple Podcasts, search for us real quick, leave us a review. Even if you don't listen to us, just leave us a review over there. We'd really appreciate it. I'm just trying to get people to listen to us as a podcast, or at least make it look like people are listening to us as a podcast. So we'd appreciate that. Thanks.
I was out last weekend, and I listened to us as a podcast this morning just so I could make sure that I didn't miss anything to carry over from last week, but not so much.
Nice. Steve's never listened to us. I don't think Steve knows that we put this on the internet.
I'm not listening to you now.
So WordPress 5.7 has arrived. People have updated their sites. Some people have not updated their sites. Some people, like Steve, haven't even thought about updating their sites yet. He's just gonna hold out and wait. Give it a couple weeks or something like that, right, Steve?
572.
572.
3, maybe 3.
Nice. So we're going to kind of go through a little rundown of what's changed there. If we've heard anything, having our ear to the ground of if anything's broken and people are pissed about it or anything like that, or any of those sorts of things, and just kind of work through some of those things. So WordPress 5.7, most sites are really good at going through, like news sites and stuff, going through and kind of, writing little lists of all the things that are going on and have, updates that are happening within it. And you can kind of tell when they've copied each other because they've kind of used the exact same formatting and the exact same ordering and whatnot. But I think one of the biggest sleeper ones that I'm thinking is happening in this, and I'm going to skip around a little bit, is the HTTP to HTTPS migration. I have a feeling that people are just going to look at this one and go like, oh yeah, that's been in there forever, hasn't it? And Cosper, even during the pre-show, you were saying that some web host just kind of manages for us, right?
Yeah.
What do you guys think about that, of having HTTPS just kind of, you flip a switch and it just kind of does what it needs to do?
Well, I know that a lot of managed WordPress hosts over the years have kind of done a pretty good job of when you, especially after Let's Encrypt came out and everybody could start adding HTTPS to their site, they could basically run what was effectively a simple search and replace. In a lot of cases, I know I've worked at a few managed hosts over my career. They normally just use WP CLI, the search replace command, and run that. It's not perfect because sometimes you'll run into something where you're still, you still see an HTTP request on an HTTPS page and you get the mixed content warning. But building this into WordPress so everybody gets it, not just the people who can afford to shell out for a managed host who tries to make those processes as pain-free as possible, I think is great.
Is that essentially all it's doing? Is doing kind of a find replace inside of your database? Or I mean, it's not issuing a Let's Encrypt certificate, right? So if you're not HTTPS, it's not going to do anything. It's not going to work, right? As a matter of fact, it might break something, right? So I mean, listen. Let's be clear. Everybody that's hosting a site should be on HTTPS and should have a certificate. Yeah. So let's get that out of the way first. But for those that aren't, I'm assuming what this feature is doing what you just described. It's an easier way to do kind of a search and replace of all the HTTP strings that are inside of your database.
Yeah, and it's part of site health. So the site health part of WordPress, which is on your dashboard, if you wanted to go look there, there's other places where it's available as well. But it gives you that idea of like, how bad is my site? What's messed up about it? What things have it detected? And one of these in particular is if it notices it's using HTTP and you want to switch it, it'll take care of that through HTTPS.
Yeah.
I don't know. So it seems like it's one of those things where like the cat bloggers out there need to be able to make this thing work and just kind of have it happen and not have to go through a whole bunch of extra stuff.
Is that a group now? The cat bloggers? Is that?
Well, I gotta make sure that we're using all of the correct terminology here. And if I'm going to make up my own terminology, then I might as well just keep adding to that lexicon.
I'm not faulting you. I like it. I think it's great.
Well, so you guys are. I still haven't joined the Gutenberg train, but I know you folks have. What are you guys looking at with these new blocks and new functionality that they've added within the block editor? How are you guys feeling about that?
Yeah, there's quite a bit coming for the block editor. I'm going to pull up the feature list here because I was reading through it this week.
One in particular that I saw was the full height block.
Well, before I get there, I was going to ask you, why are you not using Gutenberg? What's the hesitation there?
I don't know. I think I'm I'm currently set in my ways. I'm not going to say that I'm fully set in my ways, but I'm currently set in my ways. I've been jumping around a little bit between.
This is an intervention.
I know, but I've been using Beaver Builder and Divi, kind of jumping between those on a couple different sites that I have, just kind of figuring out what's out there and why people are using these things. I've been using Beaver Builder since it came out, so for me, it's like, I don't write a whole lot of blog posts themselves. It's more along the lines of pages.
Yeah.
And so if I'm going to do a page, then I want to have something that's going to be able to do the entire page, not just the content section of it.
Sure. And so, I mean, there are a ton of improvements coming for the block editor in 5.7. It just keeps getting better. But essentially, I think where they're going, and this is happening under the hood, is the block editor is going to become a full site builder. I mean, that it's not a secret. That's in this feature set. It's not fully baked yet, but that's what's happening here. And so a lot of these features are geared toward that, like the one you mentioned, the full full height blocks. That's kind of a site building feature, is what that is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, actually, they're looking to put, we're talking about 5.7 and its release. They're looking to put full site editing in 5.8. We were talking about this before the show, where it's kind of like a go or no go in just a month. Josepha posted a post on the Make WordPress blog about how full site editing is coming in potentially in 5.8, as long as by April 13th everything looks good. So I mean, Steve said it's coming. It's coming sooner than we think.
To put it in the WordPress terms, it's imminent. Right? Those are the emails I get every time a new major version of WordPress comes out. I get those emails from the plugin repository,
and then they tell you how nominal WordPress is as well. So anyway. Stacked buttons, being able to do sizes of social network icons, they're adding a bunch of stuff to the block editor, and maybe by the time I actually get to it, I won't even realize that I'm not using Beaver Builder anymore, and I'm just using the block editor because all the stuff's already there.
Yeah, possible. It's possible.
I got tasked. I would say probably around Thanksgiving, maybe a little bit before, at work, to take a page that we had built in Beaver Builder and just see what it looks like trying to do it in Gutenberg. And I managed to build a very close facsimile of the page between Beaver Builder and Gutenberg. And it's not even with full site editing. Just the fact that I could take Astra and put, all the blocks in place and get a decent facsimile. And one of the points is to test it and then see how much faster it was once we got Beaver Builder out of the mix. Nothing against Beaver Builder. I love those guys. But I mean, Gutenberg has really been pushing on page speed and making things faster for end users. So I think that was really eye-opening. And the fact that, we're coming up on full site editing in the next 3 or 4 months when WordPress 5.8 ships, I think that's really exciting.
Yep.
Yeah.
That might actually be a challenge to you, Jason. See if you've got hosting with a staging environment, I think.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Maybe you should try to rebuild the Beaver Builder pages that you've done for the water cooler in Gutenberg. I think I mean, you can get a preview of the full site editing stuff in there. I know it's still kind of in a beta, but maybe that's something to try and see what that does for your page speed score. I know you've had some page speed woes in the past, so maybe this is a thing that'll help you.
Yeah, I'll definitely take a look at it and see. It's it's something I've been wanting to do, but it just hasn't happened yet. But yeah, I'll definitely take a look at it.
There is a learning curve, right? So
yeah,
I know we're here to talk about 5.7, but there is a learning curve. It does take you have to wrap your mind around it and play with it a little bit. It's way different than what you're used to in classic editor. But anyway, let's get back to the changes that they made in 5.7. So I think the full height one is a good place to start. A lot of the improvements are just sort of things that kind of improve the whole drag and drop stuff. The little preview guy. So the preview bar that's on the left hand side, that got an improvement maybe a couple versions of WordPress ago, and so they're doing a bunch of improvements there. Some stuff with drag and drop. And then, a lot of them are kind of specific, right? I'm just reading down the list here, and I was looking through, like I said, I was looking through this earlier, but they've made some improvements for like the social icons. You can now change the sizes in the social icons block, right? So those things are there as well.
Yeah, it looks like buttons, being able to have vertical buttons versus horizontal buttons, and those sorts of things. One of the ones that caught my eye kind of going through this list is the color palette that they're proposing, and how
just looking at that. Yeah.
Dude, it kind of takes me back to the days, and this is obviously gonna date me, and it'll date the rest of you as well, but having like web safe colors, it takes me back to like those days where it's like, is this color web safe or not? Not to say that that's what this is, because we're beyond those at this point, but the idea that it's like, here's your palette and here's the things that you can kind of work with these colors seems interesting. It's also nice because of the fact that they're taking into the fact that there's contrast between each of these, that you're able to make sure that that they're accessible and those sorts of things as well. So I think when you lead by example like this, it allows for people to know what the constraints are and how to kind of make sure you're staying within those constraints.
No, I think they should just open up a color wheel on all of them and let people just choose whatever colors they want everywhere. I think that make it GeoCities.
Make it GeoCities.
I think what you're saying is there's actually a designer putting some science behind this, right? So that the colors actually work together rather than just having all the colors of the rainbow.
Right.
I hear what you're saying, Steve, and I do think that it's great that they're standardizing this, but I do think maybe just maybe we need to bring a little GeoCities and a little weird back to the web, because it's all
Steve hasn't had a MIDI player work on his site in years. I mean, but he still has a MIDI player on there, and it's still trying to play those songs, and it's just not working.
Yeah, no.
Well, I mean, okay, so I saw something the other day. This is only mildly off topic. Gwalb, GWALB. It effectively, a designer called Gwalb the color of the web, which is gray with a little blue. And
true.
That is,
true.
you look at Facebook, you look at Reddit, you look at Twitter, gray with a little blue. That is, and it's so freaking dull. Like, let's get some better colors in there.
Look,
Yeah.
I agree with you. I'm gonna steal that wall. It's awesome. You're 100% right. Skipping kind of past that stuff, the developer stuff is usually what interests me, right? And so I do like what they've done with the robots API. I don't know if you got a chance to look at that and look at the API and look at what's being done, but that is a welcome change. Being able to program and affect what's in your robots.txt file is actually critically important for SEO.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Makes me seem like it's one of those things that, like, you know how Android folks always say that, like, this has been in Android forever, but the iPhone finally got around to it.
Yep.
Is this the same sort of thing where, like, some other CMS has been doing robots.txt files like perfectly and we're just finally getting around to it? Or do you think that we've kind of finally hit the stride where we're actually doing this well?
I think there's plugins that have been doing this well for a while, right? I can't speak to other platforms and what they've been doing, but this has been handled by either plugins or just custom code for a long time. So this is a welcome addition.
Yeah.
Let's get an htaccess or a Nginx API in there. So yeah,
I like it.
Yeah. I mean, why not?
Yeah.
So what about lazy loading iframes? You know, I think this is good when you have sites where iframes are being used like crazy. There's still sites out there that have tons of iframes that are on it. I mean, the church that I work at, we had forms running through our church management system that was running in an iframe, which I absolutely hated. But now that, you know, it's like people are using APIs now. People are having, you know, there's JavaScript that's writing this stuff onto the screen. Do you necessarily have to have, an iframe? So it's like, if you do need an iframe, it's good.
The water cooler site has iframes on it as well. You're embedding the YouTube player on your site. I know that there are a lot of people out there who embed YouTube videos on their site. Those are using an iframe embed, and basically to be able to take this out of the hands of adding yet another plugin to your site and there are a ton of iframe lazy loader plugins out there to basically take this out of their hands. I mean, they added lazy loading on images. You know, the Google devs who contributed to WordPress, like, you did that with images. Now they're doing it with iframes. Great. From a performance perspective, loading an iframe when you actually need it or when you're coming up on it instead of just right at page load time will be fantastic for performance.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree as well. And you know, we should lazy load all the things. It's as simple as that.
Just make the whole page lazy load.
Yeah, lazy load.
Let's start lazy loading blocks. Like, just load the block right before you need it, not anything else. Why not?
I totally missed this comment, Cosper, but this cracked me up when I saw the show.
Yeah,
good job, JD.
Was it
Gwalp?
Gwalp. Yeah. You should read the comment for anybody that's listening on audio.
Oh yeah, it said that Cosper dressed for the occasion, gray with a little blue.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Good stuff.
That's awesome.
Speaking of programmery things, you got jQuery 3.5.1.
So let's spend a little time on what's happening with jQuery.
Yeah,
and what's
please do.
With jQuery in the past couple of versions of WordPress and WooCommerce.
Tell me more, Unky Steve.
It's bad. I know that it's necessary, right? All the upgrades are necessary. It needs to happen, right? But it's been breaking a lot of stuff for a lot of people. And so if you're not using a lot of plugins and your theme is up to date, it's you're probably not even going to notice it, right? But we've inherited a lot of sites. I have clients that run, outdated plugins. I have clients that don't not the sites that we maintain, right? But I have some clients that like to install their own stuff, and it's been a nightmare. This jQuery migrate conflict has just been a nightmare. Have you guys experienced any of this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
over.
a friend of mine who is a plugin developer who has a lot of plugins both in the repo and, just publishes them to GitHub because they don't want to go through the whole repo approval process. They're just scratching their own itch. They're like, I have no idea how many of my plugins actually need jQuery migrate because I don't keep track of that sort of thing. I just develop for the thing that I need to do. Hey, it works, great. And now they're scrambling to figure out what's breaking, what's not breaking, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's again, I'm not necessarily faulting anybody, right? It has to be done, right? This stuff has to be updated. There's no good way to go about this. Right? There's really no way to win this war, but there, now that WordPress is 40% of the internet, right? And there's, tens of thousands of plugins out there, and many of them are not maintained regularly. We're going to have JavaScript conflicts. That's just what's happening, right? And so, a lot of it is stuff that feels kind of edge casey, right? It's not stuff that's really breaking a website. A lot of stuff's happening in the dashboard. That's where we're noticing that stuff, right? So, and I'll give you, for instance, when a couple of versions of ago of WooCommerce, when WordPress was updated, WooCommerce was just not working, right? There were just menus inside of WooCommerce that weren't visible. So that is their own plugin that it's happening to. Right, and so that's where we're seeing it. It's really on the dashboard side versus the front end side.
Yeah, and I did a quick check when you said tens of thousands of plugins. We are 6 plugins short of 58,000 plugins.
I was close. I knew I was close.
Wow.
So,
yeah, that's a 10.
Yeah, it's a tens of thousands.
Is that sure?
A word? I think that's a word. Anyway, so this is not a comfortable transition on this whole jQuery migrate stuff. And so I think with 5.7 more of this is coming. Just expect it. Expect that if you're upgrading, if you're just clicking that upgrade button and you have some plugins that require jQuery, you may encounter some problems in the dashboard.
Oh.
I've seen one of the other plugins, and I hate to mention it on the show. One of the other plugins that I see breaking quite a bit is WP Bakery, right? And so the Bakery, I know that's weird. But if you're using Bakery and you upgrade to the latest version of WordPress, expect inconsistencies in the dashboard. Look, expect inconsistency with WP Bakery anyway, but especially with upgrading to newer versions of WordPress.
Good old visual decomposer.
Yeah. So that's one thing that's been a pain. And we can get into some of the developer stuff that's been that's been added here. A lot of it it's just kind of clean up stuff, but that was the biggie is the jQuery upgrade,
which has just been going on and on and on forever.
Yeah. Well, sorry, before we move on from that, are we up to date with jQuery now? I wonder what jQuery's cycle is, right? Like how often are they upgrading, and how often does WordPress need to bring in that upgrade? And I'm wondering if those can. This is going to be a terrible suggestion, but I'm wondering if that can somehow be decoupled so that you can upgrade on different cycles rather than having WordPress be what upgrades your jQuery for you.
Well, they're on 3.60.
Who, jQuery?
Yeah.
And what does WordPress 5.7 now have?
What was it? Let's see here. Oh my goodness. I'm sorry.
Again, it's a terrible suggestion. I'm just wondering if there would be a way for me to go in and force a jQuery. And now that I'm thinking about it, I think there is. a way to do that. And again, it's what I'm suggesting is going to break even more stuff. So anyway, go ahead, Cosmo. It's been a long week.
It's been a week already.
It has. Yeah, this week's been a long year.
Yeah. No, one thing I'd like to shout out, since we only have a few minutes left, it's not a huge thing. It's a huge thing for me because I have built a little stub plugin to take care of this a few versions of WordPress ago, but the block editor now no longer uses Google's Noto Serif font in the block editor. It's actually using like a native font. So on Windows, it'll use a native font for Windows. On Mac, on Linux, etc. I like this from a privacy perspective. I really don't want Google knowing every time I open up my editor to write a blog post, to edit a page, anything else. Having that query there, I didn't appreciate it, so I personally unhooked it. But I'm glad now that everybody else also gets that. But also, it's about making Gutenberg faster. It's about not having to worry about downloading that couple 100K of a web font, even though it's cached that first time. I've got to load a font now. Like, no, just use what's built in. And I mean, at one point they had disabled using a Google font in Gutenberg, and they just kind of brought it back quietly and didn't make a big deal out of it. So it looks like they're finally like writing the course there and taking it back out and saying, okay, we're good here.
Nice.
That's nice. Yeah, I think anytime you're able to speed up that the creation process, then you're not having to sit there and wait for things to load and stuff, especially when it's something like that, because it's on the dashboard side, or at least on the logged in version of the side.
Right. And I mean, even with, even with, like them taking that out of Gutenberg, like I would implore folks that unless you really need a web font, like why are you adding that extra little bit? I mean, it may be a really cool web font and then it's totally fine by me, but using the native fonts, like if you can get away with it, it's just nice. Like you're not really leaving your customers to download that extra bit of whatever just so you can get a nice little ligature on your F or whatever. Like, all right, like maybe you want that for your headline, but I mean, I see it and go, ooh, that's nice. And then I'm like, but wait, how much is this costing me when I look at the page?
Makes sense.
Yep. I frankly, until you said that, I didn't really even think about that kind of stuff and what's slowing down the dashboard, right? The more we can pull out of the dashboard and just kind of have native, right, the better, because I find that the dashboard's just getting slower and slower with each release. And again, it may not be WordPress' fault, it may be plugins, right? There's a lot going on, but
okay,
didn't think about that.
Going back in to actually, I figured out a way to bring back in that podcast that you guys did last week while I was out, like listening into that. You talked about how WordPress, like plugins especially, will load CSS and JavaScript that you don't need. Like a theme will load its CSS in the dashboard, and you don't need it if you're not on the actual like customizer. Like let's actually, I mean, I would like to put that on theme and plugin developers to like, hey man, let's sort this crap out. Let's actually not load. Let's load what we need instead of loading all this crap.
Or dashboard specific CSS and JavaScript being loaded on the front end. It's like, why is this even here? Why does this even exist? This stuff needs to be only in the dashboard, and even then you should really be thinking about how you're kind of approaching that too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, look at the time.
Look at that. Guys, thank you very much for hanging out as always. We really appreciate it.
This 30-minute show was a long week, I tell you.
It is. Here's our outro. Thank you much. See ya. Go over to WPwatercooler.com/subscribe, where you can subscribe to this podcast as well as the other podcasts that we have on the network. And I want you to go to Apple Podcasts and leave us a review. We'd really appreciate that as well. Talk to y'all later. You have a good one. Bye-bye.